Who are going to be the best champions for each role next patch? 11.24 is only a day or two away, so I reckon it's time to get prepared by sharing the 3 most broken picks across the 5 positions on the Rift. Now, of each champion the Jizz recommends, you will get the best rune page, their 3 core items, and also the optimal summoner spell combination you should run. And if you agree or disagree with any of these picks, feel free to let us know in the comments as to why you think a certain champion should or should not be in this video. Now, to make sure you don't miss any more of this daily preseason content, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. So we're going to start with the 3 best top laners for 11.24, and coming in at number 3, this is Jace. Now I understand that in lower elos, right, lots of people don't know how to play Jace simply because they do not punish and abuse the melee champions they're going against. So it's essential to understand that when you play Jace, you're playing really as a ranged champion. Now for any top laner, it's really frustrating to play against ranged champions, and for Jace, you have the ultimate disengage tool, because if one of these melee champions jumps onto your head, you can simply knock them back with your hammer form, and it's pretty much impossible for them to actually stick to you. But because in lower elos people don't actually know how to pilot Jace properly, they let the enemy melee champion CS for free, and eventually they are going to get outscaled. But if you know how to play Jace with first strike as your keystone, it can be a very oppressive and attacking setup in the top lane. What's also nice is that Eclipse is staying at 3100 gold, which was buffed in 11.23, so that's super nice. So on paper it might not look that good because Jace's win rate isn't what Dr. Mundo's is, but there is a reason this champion is getting played so much in higher elo, and I guarantee you, if there was pro play at the moment, Jace would for sure be pick or ban. And maybe this next champion coming in at number 2 for the top lane is Kayle might be pick ban as well. Probably not, but for 11.24 it's super exciting for Kayle because lethal tempo for ranged champions is getting buffed. So the attack speed is going from 5% to 7%. This is actually just a 40% increase. Now okay, you're losing some of the ranger max stacks, but this is so worth it because you're getting more attack speed, so you'll actually be accessing that extra range, even though it's down, a lot sooner during those fights. And another reason Kayle is super strong is just because her items are in a really nice position. Nash's Tooth is one of the best first item spikes in the entire game. Riftmaker, after the change in Season 11, has now become a really good trading mythic, so when you're fighting against these top laners in these 1v1s, it's really hard to beat a Kayle, and then with Death Cap, it just gives you a ridiculous amount of damage, and at this point you should have all the range you need to obliterate your opponents. But the best top laner for patch 11.24 is Jax, and Jax does go lethal tempo, which is nerfed for melee champions next patch, so the attack speed is down 2%. Now to be honest, it's not the biggest nerf, right? It's going from 15 to 13, not that much of a big deal, which is really nice. Also, the range is staying the same, so once you do actually get to max stacks, you can just stay onto your opponent and deal more damage. Also for Jax, the fact that your W counts as a tempo stack and you have your passive for even more attack speed, it's like this keystone nerf could have been a heck of a lot worse. And just like Kayle and Jace, for Jax, your items with Divine Sundra, Blade of the Rune King, Sterix Gauge, these are all in a really nice position, and Divine Sundra, well, this is the best fighter mythic on the entire Rift, and is a key reason behind Jax's success. It also helps that lots of champions these days are building HP as part of their kit, so if you play Jax, you can shred pretty much anyone. Now let's move to the mid lane and talk about the 3 best champions here. Now I probably would have included Kayle in the mid lane, but I've decided not to, just because that would be pretty greedy on Kayle's behalf. So coming in at number 3 for the mid laners, this is Kassadin, and the real reason that Kassadin has actually moved up into this position is because Archangel's staff is costing 400 less gold. Now at the moment, some Kassadin players are building Winter's Approach, or the new Fimble Winter, which is the tier tank item, so some aren't even considering going Archangel's staff. Well now, because it's going to be the same gold as Winter's Approach, this brings it back into the picture, and because this is giving you AP, it's for sure going to be the preferred option. But we also have to mention here that Crown of the Shattered Queen is giving you 10 less AP, but the good thing about this item is that it's still giving you that super busted safeguard passive, which is reducing the enemy champion's damage to you by 75%. And just as far as your runes go as well, I've recommended Fleet Footwork, because as Kassadin, it's all about scaling, and most of the time in the mid lane, well, before level 6, the lane is going to be hard. So getting Fleet Footwork for the movement speed and the HP, so the sustain, this is going to help you scale and not die 5 times in the first 3 levels. So because of these reasons, Kassadin has to be on this countdown. But beating him to number 2, this is Victor. And just like Kassadin, when you build Crown now, you're getting 10 less AP. Also with Cosmic Drive, you're getting less HP, and also less movement speed from the passive. So there are actually a few nerfs here for Victor in the item department. But it's just the fact that this is Victor with Airy. For sure these item nerfs are going to have a bit of an impact, but he's just so OP at the moment, he's still going to be in a darn good position. And some Victor players, or most Victor players, are running First Strike as their keystone, I get that, but to be honest, running this in the mid lane when you're against ranged champions, so this might be a Lux, it might be a Xerath, a Syndra, these champions actually have a very good chance of getting the first damage off. So if you are going to run First Strike on Victor, I'd really recommend it if you're against close range champions. But beating Victor and Kassadin to number 1 for the mid laners, this is going to be Anivia. And just like like Kassadin, the new Archangel staff costing 2600 gold is a huge boost to the Cryo Phoenix. Pair this with Leandri's Anguish and Zhonya's Hourglass, you have all the ability haste, the burn damage, the survivability you need to carry games, and as far as your runes go, taking Electrocute is for sure the best option as your keystone, and also running Relentless Hunter in here as well, because mobility for Anivia is a really big weakness. If you get jumped on, there's really not much you can do unless you have flash. So Relentless Hunter giving you the movement speed for the takedowns, this is just going to allow you to position better and die less. And also make sure you're running attack speed in your mana runes, because controlling minion waves and harassing the enemy champion, this is very important during the early stages of a game. So those were the 3 best mid laners, but what about the 3 best AD carries? Because in the bot lane at the moment, lethal tempo is really defining what is being OP and what is being just trash. So we're going to start by talking about Draven. Now Draven players, some of them actually in high reloads, are going lethal tempo. And because next patch lethal tempo is buffed for ranged champions in terms of the attack speed it's giving you, for sure this could be an option. But I'm going to recommend Halo Blades because this really just enhances your early game power. But the real reason I really like Draven is because the most OP AD carry, and we will reveal them shortly, Draven can absolutely crush them. Now as far as your items go, going Shield Bow, Collector, Infinity Edge, very standard stuff. These are for sure the first 3 major items you should buy. But beating Draven to number 2 on this countdown, this is Jinx. And Jinx at the moment in high reloads is performing really well with around a 53% win rate, and that's because of lethal tempo. With your fish bones in particular, which are giving you extra range on your auto attacks, think about this with lethal tempo when you have this stacked. At 6 stacks, the extra range is like half a screen. So not only are you going to be able to deal more damage because of the extra range, but you can also just stand in a safer position. You don't have to headbutt the enemy champions as much. So even though Jinx's late game is arguably the best in the game, the new lethal tempo just makes her early game and laning phase actually kind of annoying to deal with. I just want to touch on your items here as well, because you can go Kraken Slayer as your mythic if you're really fed, you want to snowball, and if the enemy team has a lot of HP and tankiness. But if you're against a team composition that has a lot of dive potential and assassins and close range champions, getting a Gale Force is probably going to be the best option because it gives you slightly less damage than Kraken, but still enough to get the kills you want, but it's also giving you the dash and the mobility that you simply don't have outside of your passive. But one AD carry who has all the mobility in the world, well, post level 6 that is, this is Vayne coming in as the best ADC. Now with lethal tempo, this keystone pretty much makes Vayne a weakness-free AD carry, because before the extra range got added to this keystone, what was Vayne's big weakness? Well, she's a short-range AD carry. So against some champions who can outrange her, it might be Ziggs, it might be Jinx, it might be Caitlyn. These bot laners and even mages in the mid lane make it really hard for Vayne to run into a team and deal the damage she wants to do. Well now, lethal tempo, this is allowing you to compete a lot more in the bot lane, and attack speed is such an important stat for her because you're all about those auto attacks. And this is also, by the way, because Vayne is the most OP, Draven is like the ultimate counter because he can really abuse her in the early game, so that's why Draven was in the top 3. Now as far as your items go, for Vayne, going Shield Bow, Ginsu's, and Wit's End, the on-hit, the survivability, the lifesteal, the attack speed, it's all too much at the moment, and to be honest, I'm really surprised nothing has been nerfed either indirectly or directly for Vayne. But what about the supports who can back up these AD carries? Who are going to be the best in 1124? Well, the first one I'm going to recommend is Lulu. Now think about these AD carries I just mentioned with the new lethal tempo. So if we're talking Jinx, Vayne, you might see Ashe and Kog'Maw, even with Draven, Lulu is going to be an amazing pick because you can peel these AD carries better than anyone else on the Rift, and you can also enhance them with the attack speed and movement speed you give them with your W and E, not to mention your ultimate, which is one of the most powerful in the game. Now I understand that some Lulu players are going Guardian as their keystone, but with Aerie, this gives you scaling but also a really annoying laning phase. By poking the enemy bot lane with your Q or even your E, over time it really does add up, especially if you run Scorch as well. So this is the page I'm going to recommend. Now as far as your items go, pretty standard stuff, with Shirelia's Battle Song, which is giving you cooldown via the mythic passive, very important, as is the movement speed. So if you were playing Lulu with a Vayne next to you, Shirelia's giving them the movement speed, like come on, the Vayne is going to get pentakills on repeat. Now following this up with a Chemtep Putrefy, because pretty much all the time the enemy team will have some sort of healing, and then a Mikhail's Crucible to keep your AD carry even safer. But one Enchantress who's a little bit better than Lulu, this is Soraka, and it's kind of the same idea here. We're going to be running Aerie as our keystone. The Q poke in lane can be really annoying, but as our secondary tree we're going to be running Bone Plating, because sometimes when the enemy champions jump onto us, we are very killable. This is going to give us the tankiness for those trades and running Revitalize, which is going to increase our healing power. And for your 3 items, we want to be going Moonstone Renewer, Redemption, and then Chemtech Putrefier. But one support who trumps both of these, and to be honest counters both of these, is coming in at number 1, and this is Blitzcrank. Now the real reason, a bit like Draven was on the AD carry list, Blitzcrank is the cream of the crop of the supports is because he counters so many of these good supports right now. So Soraka, Lulu, Sona, Janna, Nami, all of these supports are picked a lot and they perform really well. Well for Blitzcrank, if If you can land one hook onto these champions, bang, the lane ends, you snowball out of control, you get kill after kill, and it should be a very easy game. So it's just the fact that Blitzcrank has the most access to these healing and peeling supports, and for your rune page on Blitzcrank, I'm going to recommend going Predator as your keystone with Ingenious Hunter. And this setup, even though Predator is getting nerfed next patch, so the movement speed is down, and it's also going to take an extra half second to rack up. It's just the fact that with mobility boots and Predator, you can get around the map and impact it as well as any other support. But the last role we have to talk about, this is the jungle. And coming in at number 3, we have Nunu. Now this champion with the buff Sunfire Aegis is an absolute tank in the jungle. And unlike some tanks, he actually has a really good clear, and he doesn't really have many weaknesses. Okay, you can get kited quite a bit, but that's where your snowball comes in, even phase rush. The movement speed allows you to get in position to deal some serious damage and CC, and just the fact that next patch Frostfire Gauntlet is getting nerfed, this indirectly increases the value of Sunfire Aegis, which by the way is still giving you the extra armor, magic resist, and HP via the mythic passive. So if you want to pick a really reliable and consistent jungler that will work in pretty much every game, Nunu is certainly the pick. But maybe you want to play a really aggressive early game jungler and just snowball the game out of control. Well, picking Rek'Sai is certainly a good shout, and what's awesome for Rek'Sai next patch is that Conqueror is getting buffs, so the stacking is going from 4 seconds to 5 seconds. Now it's not the most important thing for Rek'Sai, because you stack this so quickly anyway. Like think of your combo, it happens in like 1 to 2 seconds. But there are for sure going to be some situations where the 5 seconds will come in handy, especially during Dragon and Baron dances where teams are kind of feeling each other out waiting to go in, it might come in super clutch. Now for your items as well, Prowler's Claw, which got buffed in 11.23, so it's 100 less gold and the active deals more damage, and following this up with a typical Edge of Night and then Guardian's Angel gives you all the damage you need and also durability. Edge of Night with the spell shield and then Guardian's Angel with the passive. It's a pretty OP setup, but it's not as OP as Trundle in the jungle, who is the best jungler for 11.24. With Divine Sunderer, Steris Gage, and then Titanic Hydra, a bit like Jax running Divine Sunderer, Trundle has to be at the top of the pile here. Now I know that lots of Trundle players are running Tempo as their keystone, but because this is getting nerfed next patch, I'm going to recommend you guys to run Press the Attack instead. And to be honest, even with the current iteration of Tempo, which is giving you 15% attack speed, Press the Attack actually has a much better win rate. And the reason for this is that lethal Tempo on Trundle, for sure, it's really scary to play against if you just stand still and let the Trundle auto attack you over and over again. But players even in the most average of elos understand what Trundle is trying to do. So with Press the Attack, it gives you that many burst damage you need for those short trades. And even if that trade does extend into a long trade, because Trundle's Q is going to reduce the attack damage of the enemy champion it's going against, and its ultimate comes in super handy as well, Press the Attack is just much more worth. So those are the 3 best champions for each role, guys, for 11.24. If you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like down below. Also remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also make sure to check out the GameLeap website on your way out, linked in the description and comment section. For Challenger tier courses, guides, fun analyses, we have everything on our website to help you peak on the Rift. So sign up, get that exclusive access, and until tomorrow's daily preseason upload, this has been the Cheers.